The rain-slicked streets of the bustling metropolis gleamed under the relentless glow of neon signs, casting fractured reflections that danced like fleeting promises across the puddles pooling at the curbs. Lena Thompson moved through the elegant chaos of Silver Oak with the quiet grace of someone who had long ago learned to navigate the invisible boundaries of service, her dark curls tied back in a practical ponytail that swayed gently as she balanced a tray of crystal glasses filled with sparkling water infused with hints of citrus and mint. At 28, with 3 years under her belt at this high-end establishment perched on the 30th floor of a gleaming skyscraper, Lena had become a fixture as unobtrusive as the polished silverware she arranged with meticulous care, serving the elite without a whisper of expectation for recognition. Senators dined here, tech moguls sealed deals over foie gras, and once, a renowned actress had slipped her a generous tip with a conspiratorial wink, but Lena always pocketed it humbly, dreaming of the day it might fund a small business of her own, perhaps a cozy cafe where stories were swapped over steaming mugs rather than whispered behind closed doors. That evening, the air hummed with the low murmur of affluent conversations, the clink of forks against porcelain, and the subtle strains of a jazz quartet tucked in the corner, their saxophone weaving melancholy threads through the opulent room adorned with velvet drapes and abstract art that cost more than Lena's annual rent. She was midway through wiping down a mahogany table, her uniform a crisp white blouse and black skirt still pristine despite the long shift, when a sharp, piercing cry shattered the refined symphony. It came from the VIP alcove, a secluded nook reserved for the city's most influential patrons, where Victor Hale, the towering billionaire whose empire spanned real estate and renewable energy ventures, sat immersed in a heated phone call, his broad shoulders straining against the fabric of his impeccably tailored gray suit. Beside him, perched on a booster seat with a menu propped open like a fortress, was his 6-year-old daughter Sophie, a sprite of a girl with golden curls and wide blue eyes that sparkled with the unfiltered wonder only children possess. Sophie had been happily coloring a placemat with crayons provided by the staff, her tiny tongue peeking out in concentration as she sketched a whimsical garden of flowers and butterflies, but now her face contorted in distress, her small hands clutching her stomach as a wave of nausea overtook her. The placemat fluttered to the floor, forgotten, as Sophie doubled over, her cries escalating into gasps that drew Lena's attention like a magnet. Without a second thought, Lena abandoned her tray on a nearby sideboard and hurried over, her sensible flats whispering against the plush carpet. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked softly, kneeling to Sophie's level, her voice a soothing anchor amid the growing alarm. Victor barely glanced up from his call, waving a dismissive hand as if this were a minor interruption in his empire-building monologue. But Lena's instincts, honed from years of watching over her younger siblings back home in the tight-knit neighborhood where porches served as communal living rooms, kicked in. Sophie's skin had turned ashen, her lips tinged with an unnatural pallor, and beads of sweat dotted her forehead despite the perfectly climate-controlled air. A sudden heave racked her frame, and she retched onto the floor, the sound heartbreakingly feeble. Lena's heart clenched. She'd taken a community first aid course last year, funded by pooled tips from her coworkers, and she recognized the signs of something far more sinister than a simple tummy ache, rapid breathing, clammy skin, dilated pupils flickering with confusion. "It's okay. I've got you," Lena murmured, scooping Sophie into her arms with the effortless strength born of necessity, the child's slight weight pressing against her chest like a fragile bird. Sophie whimpered, her arms looping weakly around Lena's neck, and in that instant, Lena felt a fierce protectiveness surge through her, overriding the hierarchical whispers of the room where waitstaff were meant to fade into the background. "Someone call for help," Lena called out to her colleagues, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her veins, as she cradled Sophie and made for the exit. The maître fumbled for his phone, but Lena couldn't wait. The elevator ride down 30 floors felt like an eternity she wasn't willing to risk. Bursting through the heavy glass doors into the lobby, she flagged down a yellow cab idling at the valet stand, thrusting a crumpled 20 into the driver's hand before the wheels had even fully stopped. "Central Memorial ER fast as you can, it's a child," she urged, sliding into the back seat with Sophie nestled against her. The taxi lurched into traffic, horns blaring in protest, but Lena tuned it out, focusing on the girl whose breaths came in shallow, erratic puffs. "Hang on, little one," Lena whispered, stroking Sophie's hair, humming a lullaby her mother used to sing on stormy nights back in the old row house where the roof leaked but the love never did. Memories flickered unbidden, her own childhood marked by scraped knees and shared secrets with her brothers, the way her family had rallied around each other when bills piled up like unspoken fears. Sophie stirred faintly, murmuring "Mama," in a voice so small it pierced Lena's soul, and she tightened her hold, willing her own calm to transfer through the thin fabric of the child's dress. The city blurred past in a kaleidoscope of lights and shadows, rain pattering against the windows like impatient fingers, and Lena prayed silently to whatever higher power listened to working folks like her, the ones who stitched the seams of society without fanfare. By the time they screeched to a halt outside the ER's sliding doors, Lena's blouse was damp with Sophie's sweat and her own anxious perspiration, but she didn't hesitate, bursting through with the girl in her arms, her cries echoing off the sterile white walls. "Help! She's sick!" She got sick suddenly at dinner, possible poisoning or allergic reaction. Lena's words tumbled out as nurses swarmed, a gurney appearing like magic, and Sophie was gently transferred, monitors beeping to life as the team wheeled her away. Lena collapsed into a hard plastic chair in the waiting area, her hands trembling now that the immediate crisis had passed from her grasp, the adrenaline ebbing into a bone-deep exhaustion. She fumbled for her phone to call the restaurant. Protocol demanded it, but the battery icon blinked critically low, dying just as the line connected. Sinking deeper into the seat, Lena replayed the moments in her mind. The cry, the retch, the dash. Had she missed something? Could she have acted faster? The ER buzzed with controlled urgency, patients groaning in bays, a doctor dictating notes into a recorder, the sharp scent of antiseptic mingling with the faint undercurrent of coffee from a nearby vending machine. Time stretched, marked only by the rhythmic tick of a wall clock, until the doors swung open again with a whoosh that carried the scent of expensive cologne and barely contained fury. Victor Hale stormed in, his presence commanding the space like a thundercloud rolling over a clear sky. His security detailed 2 burly men in dark suits flanking him but trailing a step behind, as if even they sensed the volatility radiating from their employer. Victor's eyes, sharp and steel gray, scanned the room until they locked onto Lena, still huddled in her chair, her uniform disheveled and stained. Recognition and something darker, a flash of unfounded accusation, twisted his features. He advanced like a predator, his polished loafers clicking against the linoleum, and Lena rose instinctively, her pulse quickening. "What have you done to my daughter?" Victor's voice was a low growl, laced with the authority of a man unaccustomed to vulnerability. His phone still clutched in one hand, as if the call he'd abandoned mid-sentence had been the real interruption. Lena's mouth went dry, but she met his gaze steadily. Years of diffusing tense tables, equipping her with a resilience she didn't know she possessed. "Sir, I brought her here. She got ill at the restaurant. Suddenly, terribly sick. I held her, got her in a cab right away. The doctors are with her now." Her words were measured, pleading for understanding, but Victor's face darkened further, his mind leaping to conclusions fueled by exhaustion, fear for his child, and the insidious undercurrents of bias that whispered suspicions before facts could surface. He saw not the woman who had cradled his daughter through terror, but a stranger in a service uniform, her skin a canvas for his misplaced rage. "You think you can just pick her up, cart her off like some common thief? What did you give her? What kind of place is that restaurant hiring people like you?" The words landed like barbs, each one sharper than the last, and Victor stepped closer, his frame towering over her, his hand gesturing wildly in accusation. The waiting room fell into a hushed tableau, nurses pausing mid-stride, a family in the corner averting their eyes, the air thick with unspoken discomfort. Lena backed up a step, her back pressing against the cool wall, her voice cracking slightly as she raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "Please, sir, I swear, I only wanted to help. She was hurting. I couldn't just stand there." But Victor's fear had morphed into a storm he couldn't contain, his fist clenching at his side before he shoved forward, not with full violence but with a forceful push that sent Lena stumbling sideways, her shoulder colliding with a metal cart of supplies that rattled ominously. Pain bloomed hot and immediate, a gasp escaping her lips as she caught herself, the sting of rejection mingling with the physical ache. "You stay away from my family," Victor snarled, his breath hot and ragged, the security guards shifting uneasily but not intervening, bound by loyalty to a man unraveling before their eyes. Lena's vision blurred with unshed tears, not just from the shove, but from the raw injustice of it. The gratitude she might have expected twisted into this visceral dismissal, her efforts reduced to suspicion because of who she was, how she looked in that moment of crisis. "I didn't. I would never," she whispered, sliding down the wall to sit on the floor, knees drawn up as if to shield herself from the onslaught of words that cut deeper than any bruise. The scene hung frozen, a microcosm of fractures in a society that preached equality but practiced exclusion, until a new voice boomed through the tension like a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. "Back off right now." Jamal Washington, Lena's co-worker and steadfast friend, barreled through the ER doors, his tall frame clad in the rumpled brown jacket of a delivery service, chest heaving from the sprint across town after piecing together the chaos from frantic texts at the restaurant. Jamal had been unloading crates in the alley when the commotion erupted, but he'd caught the tail end on the security feed, his IT savvy from freelance gigs allowing him a glimpse of Lena's desperate exit with the child in her arms. Now, breathless and fierce, he planted himself between Victor and Lena, his broad shoulders a barrier of unyielding solidarity. "She saved your kid's life, man. I saw it all." Sophie collapsed. Lena scooped her up and ran like her own life depended on it. Through traffic, hailing a cab, holding that girl the whole way. "And this is how you repay her? By acting like a fool in a public hospital?" Jamal's eyes blazed with the controlled fire of someone who'd navigated his own share of unfair judgments, his voice carrying the weight of shared histories in a city that could be as unforgiving as it was vibrant. Victor wheeled on him, his fury redirecting like a river bursting its banks, but Jamal didn't flinch, his stance rooted like the ancient oaks that gave the restaurant its name. "You think I care about your eyewitness account? You two probably cooked this up together, some scheme to get close to her, to us." The accusation hung ugly in the air, laced with the poison of stereotypes that painted communities of color as conspirators rather than contributors. But Jamal pressed on, his tone sharpening to a blade. "Scheme? Man, you're delusional. Lena risked everything, her job, her safety, to get Sophie here in time. The only one scheming is you, jumping to conclusions before the doctors even speak." The standoff teetered on the edge, Victor's security detail inching forward as if to pull their boss back, when the ER doors swung open once more, admitting a harried doctor in scrubs, her face etched with the gravity of her findings. Dr. Elena Vasquez clutched a tablet, her latex-gloved hands still trembling slightly from the urgency of the case. The room's tension amplified as all eyes turned to her, Victor's bluster momentarily silenced. "Mr. Hale," she began, her voice steady but laced with shock. "Your daughter Sophie, she's stabilized, but the tests confirm it. She was poisoned. Not an accident, not food gone bad. This was deliberate, a toxin introduced externally. We're running tox screens to identify it, but she's responding to treatment. She'll need monitoring, but she's out of immediate danger." The words landed like a thunderclap, rippling through the space and sucking the oxygen from Victor's lungs. Poisoned. The implications cascaded: betrayal, malice, a violation so intimate it clawed at his paternal core. His gaze flicked to Lena, now rising shakily from the floor with Jamal's arm steadying her, and for a fleeting second, doubt cracked his certainty, a whisper of regret piercing the armor of his assumptions. But fear is a stubborn beast, and Victor turned away, muttering to his guards about alerting authorities, his mind already spinning toward containment rather than contrition. As he vanished into Sophie's room, the weight of his departure left Lena and Jamal in a pocket of stunned quiet, the doctor's revelation echoing in their ears. Poisoned, deliberate. Who would target a child? Lena's mind reeled, fragments of the evening replaying, the VIP table, the servers bustling, a fleeting shadow in the periphery. Jamal, ever the pragmatist, pulled out his phone, already queuing up the restaurant's security app. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up," he said gently to Lena, guiding her toward a side restroom where she could splash water on her face and steady her breathing. But as they moved, Jamal's screen lit up with a frozen frame from the alley cam, a woman in a sleek pantsuit, her face partially obscured by the brim of a hat, slipping through the service door just before the meal service peaked. "Wait, that's Sophia Reed," Jamal murmured, zooming in, recognition dawning. Sophia, Victor's executive assistant of 8 years. the epitome of discretion with her flawless bob haircut and unerring efficiency. What was she doing lurking in the back, far from the polished front of house? Lena peered over his shoulder, a chill settling in her bones despite the ER's warmth. She was there? Near the kitchen? Jamal nodded grimly, his fingers flying across the interface to pull up adjacent footage. There's Sophia leaning over the prep counter, her hand darting into a pouch on a line cook's apron, a small vial glinting momentarily before vanishing. The sequence unfolded in damning clarity. The pouch transferred to the server who delivered Sophie's dish, the innocent exchange amid the dinner rush, and then the collapse. She used the staff as unwitting mules, Jamal said, his voice hardening with resolve. Smart, layered deniability, but she slipped up on cam. Lena's stomach twisted, a nauseous echo of Sophie's earlier distress. Why? Sophia seemed so composed. What grudge could she have against a little girl? Jamal closed the app, pocketing his phone as a nurse approached with forms for Lena to sign witness statements, liability waivers in this tangled web of privilege and peril. I don't know yet, but we'll find out. Sophia's been with Hale forever loyal to a fault, unless something broke that loyalty. As they stepped out into the cool night air, the rain having tapered to a misty drizzle that beaded on the ambulance bay's overhang, Lena felt the first stirrings of a purpose beyond survival. She'd saved a life, endured scorn for it, and now glimpsed the shadows of a deeper wrong. Jamal hailed another cab, this one for his sister's nearby apartment where Lena could crash for the night, away from her own cramped studio that suddenly felt too exposed. Inside the cab, as the city lights streaked by like shooting stars, Jamal confided what he'd pieced together from a quick online dig while waiting for the ambulance reports. Sophia Reed, widowed young, her only son lost in a tragic car accident 5 years prior, a hit and run involving a Hale Industries executive who walked free on a technicality, buried under layers of legal maneuvering funded by Victor's bottomless coffers. Grief turns to grudge, Jamal said softly, his hand on her shoulder a silent vow. She didn't aim to kill, just to wound him where it hurt most, a scare, meant to mirror her pain. But it went wrong, and now Sophie's paying the price. Lena stared out the window, the skyline a jagged silhouette against the inky sky, her reflection ghostly in the glass. The shove from Victor replayed in her mind not the physical force, but the emotional one, the way his eyes had dismissed her humanity in a heartbeat. Yet Sophie's faint whisper from earlier, overheard through the curtain as the nurses worked. The nice lady. She held me tight, lingered like a balm. Back at Jamal's sister's place, a warm, cluttered haven filled with the aroma of simmering stew and the soft glow of family photos on every surface, Lena showered away the grime of the evening, the hot water cascading over bruises that were more psychic than physical. Wrapped in a borrowed robe, she joined Jamal at the kitchen table where he pored over his laptop, cross-referencing timelines and access logs. Victor's already lawyered up, he noted, scrolling through breaking news alerts on his feed. But if we get this to him clean footage, timestamps, motive, he'll have to face it, and face what he did to you. Lena sipped chamomile tea, the steam curling like unanswered questions. He apologized? In the room, after the doctor, her voice trailed, hope warring with wariness. Jamal shook his head. Not yet, but he will. And when he does, make him earn it not with checks, but with change. As the night deepened, the sisters chatted softly in the living room, sharing tales of resilience from their own lives. Jamal's sister recounting how she'd clawed her way through nursing school after a layoff, Lena nodding in quiet solidarity, the bonds of community weaving a safety net against the isolation of injustice. Sleep came fitfully for Lena. Dreams tangled with images of Sophie's trusting eyes and Sophia's shadowed figure, but dawn brought clarity. She rose early, penning a statement on a scrap of paper. Her account, unvarnished, of the rescue and the rebuke that followed. Jamal filmed it on his phone, a raw testimonial destined for local radio waves where voices like hers too often echoed unheard. You're not just surviving this, he told her as they edited the clip over breakfast pancakes. You're shaping it. By midday, Victor appeared at the apartment unannounced, his entourage reduced to a single driver idling curbside, his posture humbled by the night's revelations. Knocking tentatively, he stood on the stoop as Jamal opened the door, his eyes searching past the threshold to find Lena emerging from the kitchen, composed in fresh jeans and a sweater. Miss Thompson, he began, his voice stripped of its earlier thunder, roughened by a sleepless vigil at Sophie's bedside. The doctors, they told me everything. And Jamal showed me the footage this morning, he insisted. I was wrong. Terribly, unforgivably wrong. Fear made me blind, and I lashed out at the one person who deserved thanks. Lena regarded him steadily, the man who had built fortresses of steel and glass now appearing as vulnerable as any parent in crisis. Miss Hale, your daughter, she's brave, and she's going to be okay. That's what matters. But what you did, it wasn't just to me. It was to everyone who looks like me, who serves without being seen. Victor nodded, swallowing hard, extending a card with his personal attorney's contact, not as a bribe, but as a bridge. I'll make a public statement. Clear your name. Ensure restitution for any losses. And for Sophie, she wants to see you. If you'll allow it. The visit ended with a tentative accord, Victor departing with a weight lifted but not erased, while Lena turned to Jamal, her resolve crystallizing. This isn't over. Sophia's just the start. Who supplied her? Who knew? Jamal grinned faintly, cracking his knuckles over the keyboard. On it. But first, your interview airs at noon. Let the city hear you. As the broadcast went live, Lena's voice filling airwaves from community stations to viral clips, the ripple began. Calls of support flooding in, strangers sharing their own tales of overlooked heroism, a chorus rising against the silence. Justice for Lena trended quietly at first, then roared, drawing eyes to the shadows where truths hid. And in the quiet aftermath, as Sophie recovered with stories of the brave lady with the soft voice, Lena stood taller, no longer just a waitress, but a beacon in the gathering storm, ready to illuminate the paths others feared to tread. The city's pulse quickened around her, a symphony of potential, where one act of kindness could unravel empires of indifference, and where the real work of healing, of holding accountable, of building anew had only just begun. Yet beneath the budding hope lay undercurrents of uncertainty. Anonymous messages trickled into Jamal's inbox, veiled warnings from unseen watchers. Drop it, or the poison spreads. Lena read them without flinching, her fingers tracing the edge of a photo Sophie had drawn during her hospital stay, a stick-figure duo under a rainbow, labeled Lena and me, best friends forever. It was a child's innocence weaponized into armor, a reminder that the fight wasn't solitary. Evenings blurred into strategy sessions at the apartment, maps of connections sketched on napkins, Sophia's old case files, Victor's corporate rivals, whispers of consulting firms that specialized in reputation management with a darker edge. Lena delved into public records between shifts, her library card earning overtime as she pored over legal briefs, yellowed with age, uncovering patterns of settlements hushed with NDAs, lives derailed by engineered scandals. Jamal's tech wizardry peeled back digital layers, revealing encrypted chats where grievances festered into plots. One thread caught them cold, a forum for disgruntled ex-employees. Sophia's username buried in a rant about justice deferred, linked to a shadowy figure promising tools for reckoning. The puzzle pieces aligned uneasily, pointing to Harlan West, a former Hale exec ousted in a boardroom coup, now lurking in the consulting world where grudges monetized into strategies. He's the architect, Jamal concluded. One late night, screens casting blue glows on their weary faces. Supplied the toxin, coached the delivery. But why rope in Sophia? Leverage her pain for his gain. Lena leaned back, the weight of complicity heavy. Because pain makes the perfect pawn raw, relatable, hard to suspect. Their breakthrough came via a tip from an unlikely ally, a line cook at Silver Oak, guilt-ridden after realizing his pouch had been tampered with, who slipped Jamal a burner phone with recorded snippets of Sophia's frantic whispers in the break room days prior. It wasn't meant to hurt the kid bad, just enough to shake him. The recording crackled, Sophia's voice breaking. Harlan said it'd be reversible, a lesson in loss. The evidence mounted, a digital dossier that could topple dominoes. Victor, summoned to review it in a neutral coffee shop to avoid tales, blanched at the betrayal's depth. Harlan, he was like family once. This ends now. With his resources mobilized, private investigators, forensic experts, the net tightened. Harlan's sleek office in a nondescript midtown tower yielded under warrant, vials matching the talk's profile, emails coded in euphemisms like sympathy delivery and emotional recalibration. Confronted in a sterile conference room, Harlan's facade cracked, his silver-tongued charm dissolving into bitter admissions. Hale took everything from me, my stake, my vision. Sophia was collateral, her story the perfect cover. You think this is isolated? It's the game. Sweetheart power protects itself. His eyes on Lena held no remorse, only the cold calculus of a man who'd gambled lives for leverage. As cuffs clicked around his wrists, courtesy of federal agents looped in for the interstate angle, Lena felt a hollow victory. Justice served, but scars lingered. Victor's public mea culpa aired prime time, a suited figure at a podium flanked by lawyers, voiced gravelly with sincerity. I failed not just my daughter, but a woman of extraordinary courage. Lena Thompson is the hero here, and I pledge to amplify voices like hers through reforms in my companies. Applause was polite, but online, the tide swelled petitions for workplace protections, op-eds dissecting bias in crises, donations trickling to a fledgling fund Jamal set up for affected service workers. Lena, back at Silver Oak for her first post-incident shift, felt the shift in the air. Nods of respect from staff, a manager's quiet promotion offer, customers slipping notes of encouragement with their bills. Sophie's recovery was swift, her room a riot of get-well balloons. And when Lena visited, the girl's hug was fierce, unscripted. Daddy says you're magic, Sophie giggled, presenting a beaded bracelet crafted in art therapy. Victor lingered in the doorway, his presence subdued. She's right. Thank you for everything. Lena slipped the bracelet on, the beads cool against her wrist. Tell her it's teamwork, and tell her to keep drawing those rainbows, they're stronger than storms. As weeks unfolded, the immediate fire dimmed, but embers glowed. Lena's radio spot evolved into a podcast pilot, Tables Turned, where she interviewed fellow servers about hidden hardships, their stories a tapestry of triumphs over trials. Jamal upgraded security on all devices, paranoia a prudent companion. Yet peace was tentative. A late-night call from an unknown number breathed. Harlan was small fry. Watch your back, before disconnecting. Lena hung up, staring at the city lights from her window, the metropolis a labyrinth of light and shadow. She wasn't afraid, not anymore. The shove in the ER had been a catalyst, forging her from observer to advocate. With Jamal's tech at her fingertips and Victor's reluctant alliance as a shield, she traced the whisper to its source, a veiled reference to Stratton Advisors, Harlan's former haunt, where containment strategies were the stock in trade. The real web was vast, spun from boardrooms to back alleys, but Lena was done being tangled. She texted Jamal, "Time to pull threads." His reply pinged instant, "On it, let's unravel this thing." And so, as autumn leaves began their descent in fiery spirals, Lena stepped forward, her path illuminated not by spotlights but by the quiet glow of persistence, ready to confront the architectures of silence that had nearly silenced her. The story of one waitress and a billionaire's daughter was no longer just personal. It was a prologue to a reckoning, where every voice raised echoed into eternity, challenging the status quo to bend or break. In the heart of the city that never slept, Lena found her rhythm, a beat of justice pulsing stronger with each dawn, proving that even in the face of fury, compassion could carve canyons through stone. The first rays of dawn filtered through the gauzy curtains of Jamal's sister's apartment, painting the living room in soft hues of gold and rose that did little to dispel the shadows clinging to Lena's resolve. She stirred on the pull-out couch, the faint ache in her shoulder, a persistent reminder of Victor's misguided shove. But as she sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes, a quiet determination settled over her like a well-worn shawl, familiar, comforting, unyielding. The aroma of fresh coffee wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the sizzle of eggs and the rhythmic chop of vegetables, courtesy of Jamal's sister, Marla, who moved with the efficient grace of a woman who'd turned single motherhood into an art form. "Morning, warrior," Marla said with a warm smile. Sliding a plate across the counter, scrambled eggs flecked with peppers and onions, toast slathered in butter, a side of sliced fruit that burst with sweetness on Lena's tongue. Jamal joined them moments later, his laptop tucked under one arm like an extension of himself, dark circles under his eyes betraying the hours he'd spent sifting through digital breadcrumbs after Victor's departure. "You eat first, then we plot," he declared, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs, the steam rising like unspoken plans. Lena nodded, savoring the simple normalcy of the meal, a brief anchor before the day's currents pulled her under. By 9, dressed in her spare uniform ironed crisp by Marla's steady hands, she was en route to Silver Oak, the cab weaving through morning traffic thick with commuters and delivery vans. The restaurant loomed ahead, its facade a sleek expanse of glass and chrome reflecting the bustling street below, but stepping inside felt like crossing into a parallel world where whispers replaced the previous night's clamor. The lunch rush hadn't fully ignited yet, but heads turned as Lena entered through the staff door, her presence rippling through the kitchen like a stone skipped across still water. Fellow servers paused mid-prep. A busboy with flour-dusted hands offered a tentative thumbs up, while the sous chef, a burly man named Rico who'd shared shifts with her for years, clapped her on the back with a gruff, "You good, Hermana?" Not everyone met her gaze. A few averted eyes, murmuring about the drama upstairs. Their discomfort, a subtle barrier born of fear that association might taint their own precarious footing in this glittering gig economy. The manager, Mr. Ellis, a wiry man with a perpetual clipboard and a tie knotted too tight, summoned her to the cramped office behind the walk-in cooler, the air heavy with the scent of aged cheese and unspoken tension. "Lena, about last night." He began, adjusting his glasses, his voice a tightrope walk between sympathy and self-preservation. "The owners are spooked press, sniffing around," Hale's name attached. "We value you, truly. But this could jeopardize." She cut him off gently but firmly, her chin lifting as she met his eyes. "Jeopardize what, exactly?" "My quick thinking saved a child's life in your establishment. If that's a problem, maybe the issue isn't me, it's the system that lets one bad moment overshadow a good one." Ellis shifted, caught off guard by her poise, and after a beat, he relented with a sigh. "All right, you're on light duties today, front station only, and we'll review your position next week. No promises, but fight for it if you want." Lena left the office with her job intact, a small victory that fueled her steps as she tied on her apron and faced the dining floor, where the first patrons trickled in suits, loosening collars, laughter bubbling over mimosas. Jamal texted midway through her shift, dug deeper on Sophia's trail. She's lawyered up, but her emails pinged to Harlan West, ex-Hale exec, now at Stratton Advisors. Shady outfit. Specializes in crisis navigation. "Meet after close?" Lena replied with a thumbs-up emoji, her mind already mapping the confrontation, the thrill of pursuit mingling with a prudent caution she'd learned from watching too many true crime docs on late-night breaks. The afternoon dragged in fits and Stotts refilling waters for a table of executives who debated mergers without glancing her way, clearing plates from a family whose toddler smeared pasta across the tablecloth with gleeful abandon, but each interaction grounded her, a reminder that this world of polished surfaces hid human hearts beneath. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the skyline visible from the floor to ceiling windows, Lena clocked out and met Jamal in the alley behind the restaurant, where the air cooled to a crisp edge and the distant hum of the city provided a veil for their whispers. He leaned against a stack of crates, scrolling through his phone with practiced ease. Harlan's office is in the Meridian Tower, mid-level firm, all glass walls and fake plants. I pulled public filings. He got booted from Hale 5 years back over some insider trading flap, walked with a fat severance but nursing a grudge the size of Lake Michigan. Sophia's son dying in that hit and run? Harlan's firm handled the cover-up, buried evidence to protect the driver, a Hale VP. She reached out to him for closure, and he twisted it into a weapon. Lena's brow furrowed, piecing the puzzle. So he fed her the toxin, coached the drop, turned her grief into his revenge play against Victor? Jamal nodded, pocketing his device. Exactly. But get this. Stratton's client list reads like a who's who of corporate cleanups, non-competes enforced with threats, whistleblowers discredited via planted stories. Harlan's not just rogue, he's the tip of something systematic. The revelation hung between them, heavy as the gathering dusk, but Lena felt a spark, ignite, not fear, but focus. Then we go to him. Tonight. With the footage, the emails make him squirm. Jamal hesitated, his protective instincts flaring. It's risky. Guys like him have layers security, alibis, lawyers on speed dial. But Lena's eyes gleamed with the quiet steel of someone who'd stared down a billionaire's wrath and emerged unbroken. Riskier to wait. Sophie deserves full truth, and so do I. They cabbed to the Meridian Tower, a monolith of mirrored steel that swallowed the fading light, its lobby a cavern of marble and hushed echoes where security guards nodded them toward the elevators after a perfunctory badge scanned Jamal's freelance IT cred from a past gig granting them guest access. Harlan West's office occupied the 14th floor, a corner suite with views that stretched to the horizon, furnished in minimalist chic, leather chairs, abstract prints in silver frames, a desk that screamed old money. Harlan himself was a silver fox in his mid-50s, lean and sharp-featured, sipping scotch from a tumbler as he wrapped a video call, his reflection in the window a ghost of smug assurance. The door clicked open, unannounced Jamal's hack bypassing the lock, and Harlan spun in his chair, surprise etching lines across his brow before smoothing into calculated calm. "To what do I owe this uninvited pleasure, Miss Thompson? I presume the viral sensation du jour." His tone dripped condescension, but Lena stepped forward undeterred, Jamal flanking her like a sentinel, a tablet in hand displaying the incriminating footage looping silently. Sophia's sleight of hand, the vial's gleam, timestamps aligning with Sophie's meal. "Cut the act, Mr. West," Lena said evenly, her voice carrying the weight of the ER's fluorescent hum. Victor's shove, Sophie's trusting grip. "You supplied the poison, manipulated Sophia's pain for your vendetta. We have emails, logs enough to bury you alongside her." Harlan leaned back, swirling his drink, his eyes appraising them like pieces on a chessboard. "Bold move, barging in like amateur sleuths. But you forget. This isn't a courtroom drama. It's business risk assessment, mitigation. Victor Hale crushed me once. Reciprocity is fair play." Jamal tapped the screen, pulling up the hit-and-run file. "Fair? You exploited a mother's loss, endangered a child. That's not play. That's predation." For a moment, Harlan's facade slipped, a flicker of something raw regret, calculation, crossing his features before he recovered with a chuckle devoid of mirth. "Sophia came to me broken, begging for a way to make him feel it. I provided options, discretion. The girl? Collateral in a larger equation. Hale's empire thrives on silencing threats. I merely balanced the scales." Lena leaned in, her gaze unblinking. "Scales? You mean the ones tipped against people like me, everyday folks painted as villains before the facts catch up? Tell us about Stratton. Who's pulling your strings?" Harlan's laugh sharpened, but his eyes darted to the door, a tell of unease. "Ah, the bigger picture. Stratton advises on containment, reputations preserved, narrative shaped, but if you want names, dig deeper. There are firms beyond firms, networks that span coasts, ensuring the powerful stay untouched." He rose then, signaling the end, but not before sliding a business card across the desk embossed gold. A single name. Apex Network. "Curiosity's a dangerous trait, Miss Thompson. Drop this, and perhaps we discuss compensation. Pursue it, and you'll find doors closing faster than they open." They left as abruptly as they'd arrived, the elevator descent a silent storm of implications, Harlan's warning echoing like a distant thunder. Back on the street, the night air crisp with the promise of autumn, Jamal hailed a ride while Lena pocketed the card, its edges sharp against her palm. "He's scared we hit a nerve," Jamal said, sliding into the back seat beside her. "Apex? Sounds like a consortium, the kind that lobbies quietly, sues loudly." Lena nodded, her mind racing ahead to contingencies. Victor's resources could crack it open, but we need more than his word, we need allies. True to form, Victor responded to Jamal's encrypted message within the hour, agreeing to a clandestine meet at a nondescript diner on the city's edge, far from prying eyes and paparazzi lenses. The place was a relic red vinyl booths cracked with age, a jukebox crooning forgotten ballads, the scent of greasy fries and strong coffee a comforting counterpoint to the high-stakes hush. Victor arrived alone, his usual armor of suit swapped for a simple sweater and jeans, the lines around his eyes deeper, etched by nights of parental vigilance and self-reckoning. "The footage on Harlan, it's airtight," he confirmed, sliding into the booth opposite them. A pot of tea ordered as camouflage. "My team's verifying the talks match now." He'll face charges: attempted harm, conspiracy. But that card, Apex. I've heard whispers a shadow alliance of advisors, ex-Intel types, peddling stability services to blue-chip clients. If they're involved, this escalates. Lena stirred her tea, the spoon clinking softly. Escalates how? From personal grudge to systemic playbook? Victor met her eyes, his voice low. Exactly. They don't just clean messes, they prevent them. Preemptive strikes on potential liabilities. Employees who speak up, partners who waver. I turned a blind eye once, thinking it kept the machine oiled. Now, I'll dismantle what I can. His offer was concrete. Access to internal audits, a discreet investigator on retainer, even a foundation grant to amplify Lena's emerging voice. Gratitude tempered with caution, Lena accepted the aid but set boundaries. This isn't charity, Mr. Hale, it's partnership, and it starts with me speaking out, not hiding. Emboldened, Lena channeled that momentum into the public sphere. Her first foray, a panel at the local community center's equity forum, a modest venue with folding chairs and a podium scarred by years of impassioned pleas. The topic: voices from the margins, amplifying everyday justice. Seated between a union organizer with a megaphone laugh and a professor dissecting labor laws like ancient scrolls, Lena gripped the mic when her turn came. The room's 200 souls leaning in, a sea of expectant faces under fluorescent lights that buzzed like hesitant applause. I didn't set out to be anyone's symbol, she began, her voice steady, carrying the timbre of late-night confessions over kitchen tables. I was just doing my job, serving, watching, caring when a little girl needed help. I ran with her in my arms, through doors that weren't mine to open, and what I got back wasn't thanks, but doubt. A hand raised not in aid, but in anger, because in that moment, my skin spoke louder than my actions. Murmurs rippled, nods of recognition from those who'd worn similar invisible weights. But here's the truth we all know. Silence isn't neutral, it's a chain. And breaking it, that's where power lives. Not in boardrooms or headlines, but in us, sharing our stories until the world can't look away. Questions poured forth, a young activist probing sustainability, an elder statesman sharing tales from civil rights marches, and Lena answered with raw honesty, her words weaving personal pain into collective purpose. The event streamed live, clips exploding across social feeds. Number justice for Lena evolving into number amplify the margins, strangers DMing their own encounters with unchecked authority, a chorus of validation that wrapped around Lena like communal armor. Victor's statement dropped the next morning. A video from his home office, backdrop of family photos softening his image. Lena Thompson embodies the grace I lacked in crisis. Her courage saved my daughter. Now, I commit to hers reforms in hiring, bias training, a public fund for service workers facing adversity. The gesture landed, bridging divides, but shadows lengthened as retaliation stirred. Harlan, cornered and furious, activated old networks. Lena's phone buzzed with blocked calls, her mailbox stuffed with unsigned letters laced with veiled threats. Stories end when tellers quiet down. One evening, walking home from a late shift, she sensed the tail, a nondescript sedan lingering at corners, headlights dipping low. Jamal confirmed it via a dashcam he'd rigged to her bike, plates traced to a rental under a Shell LLC linked to Stratton. They're probing, testing, resolve, he said over encrypted chat, upgrading her locks and routing her comms through VPNs woven like safety nets. Undeterred, Lena rallied support, connecting with Clarissa Reyes, a sharp-eyed attorney from a pro bono firm specializing in workplace equity. Her office, a sunlit haven of stacked case files and motivational posters quoting Audre Lorde. "You're not alone in this fight," Clarissa assured, reviewing the Harlan dossier over herbal tea. "We've got precedent suits against retaliatory surveillance, emotional distress claims. But to win big, we build a coalition. Your voice, Jamal's tech, Victor's reach, my law." Together, they formed the core of what would become the Resilience Network, a loose alliance of affected workers, starting with a virtual roundtable where a barista shared her blacklisting after union talk. A retail clerk recounted fabricated reviews tanking her career. Lena moderated, her facilitation a blend of empathy and edge, turning vents into visions. Harlan's arrest came swift under federal scrutiny, the toxin classified as a controlled substance, his role in the hit-and-run cover-up unearthed like buried roots. Hauled from a charity gala in cuffs that gleamed under flashbulbs, he spat defiance in his booking photo, but in interrogation, cracks formed. "Stratton's a cog," he admitted under pressure, voice tinny over speakerphone as Clarissa patched them in. "Apex Network? That's the engine cross-industry syndicate. From tech to finance, engineering, compliance through any means. They flagged you early. Lena, post-incident potential for noise. Harlan was your handler." The name Apex echoed like a harbinger, a web spanning invisible threads from lobbying firms to data brokers. Their playbook, a chilling manual of preemptive neutralization, anonymous leaks, career sabotage, psychological nudges disguised as concern. Lena absorbed it without crumbling, her nights now filled with strategy sketches on legal pads, outreach plans, alliance maps, contingency funds seeded by Victor's check and crowdfunded surges. Public momentum crested at a rally in the city square, banners fluttering in the breeze. "Hear us, heal us." Lena took the stage, wind tousling her curls, her speech a clarion. "They thought one push would silence me, but it lit a path. For every story buried, we unearthed two more. This isn't vengeance, it's volume, turning whispers into waves." Cheers thundered, hands clasped in solidarity, the crowd a mosaic of ages and backgrounds united in the simple act of showing up. Victor observed from the edges, his donation anonymous but his presence felt, a quiet evolution from antagonist to ally. As dusk fell, painting the sky in bruised purples, Lena linked arms with Jamal and Clarissa, the square's energy buzzing in their veins. Apex loomed larger now, a colossus casting long shadows, but in its silhouette, Lena saw opportunity, not just exposure, but evolution. The personal plot against her had unraveled. Harlan's threads pulled taut and snapped, but the ascent of her voice carried her higher, into arenas where individual tales fused into tidal shifts. Late that night, back in her revitalized studio, now fortified with smart locks and a stack of self-defense manuals, Lena unrolled a world map on her coffee table, pins marking Apex's suspected nodes, coastal hubs, international outposts. "This ends with us writing the rules," she murmured to the empty room, her reflection in the window a portrait of poised power. Jamal's text lit her screen. "Rally vids going nuclear, offers pouring in. Podcast, book, you name it." She smiled faintly, typing back, "All of it. But first, Apex. Let's map the maze." The city outside hummed its endless song, a backdrop to her burgeoning symphony, where each note struck not in isolation, but in harmony with the unseen choir of the overlooked. Resilience wasn't a solo. It was a movement. And Lena, once a background melody, now conducted the crescendo, her timbre resonating far beyond the footlights of fate. Whispers of Apex's reach filtered through anonymous tips, a former Stratton's intern emailing redacted memos, a journalist pitching a deep-dive series, each thread weaving tighter, illuminating the network's veins. Algorithms scraping socials for dissent, consultants scripting denials, enforcers in unmarked vans. Clarissa's firm filed exploratory motions, probing for discovery, while Victor's investigators unearthed a whistleblower in Apex's fringes, a mid-level operative haunted by complicity. They targeted the vulnerable first. The source confided over a secure line, voice modulated to gravel. Service workers, adjuncts easy to discredit, hard to rally. You're their nightmare. Credible, connected, unbowed. Lena absorbed the intel like vital rain, channeling it into Resilience Network's inaugural newsletter, a digital dispatch blending survivor spotlights with action items, petition templates, ally toolkits, virtual vigils. Subscriptions swelled overnight, a digital town square where isolation dissolved into interconnection. Yet the ascent wasn't linear. Apex countered with subtlety, a planted article in a niche trade rag questioning Lena's agenda, her promotion at Silver Oak mysteriously tabled amid budget reviews. Jamal countered with counter-narratives, viral threads debunking the spin, his code crafting bots that amplified truth over noise. One stormy evening, as thunder rattled her windows, Lena hosted the Round Table's first in-person gathering at a borrowed church basement, folding tables laden with potluck casseroles, chairs scraped into a circle under strings of fairy lights. 20 attendees, faces etched with stories. A teacher sidelined for equity curriculum pushes, a mechanic unionized out of his garage. Lena opened with vulnerability. I thought saving one life would be enough. But it showed me the chain, how one silence enables the next. Shares flowed like cathartic rivers, tears mingling with laughter, the room alight with the alchemy of acknowledgement. Clarissa sketched class action blueprints on a whiteboard, Victor's grant earmarked for legal aid, Jamal demoing a secure app for tip sharing. By night's end, commitments crystallized. Monthly meets, media trainings, a petition drive targeting city council for oversight reforms. As participants dispersed into the downpour, umbrellas blooming like resilient flowers, Lena lingered, folding chairs with Jamal, the echo of voices lingering. "You're building something unbreakable," he said, stacking the last one. She paused, rain pattering on the roof like applause. "Not me, we. And Apex? They're next on the blueprint." Dawn brought validation. The journalist's pitch landed, a feature in a national outlet framing Lena as the server who served justice. Interviews followed, podcasts probing her pivot, TEDx invites dangling like stars. Victor's reforms rolled out, mandatory allyship workshops at Hale Industries, a hotline for internal complaints. But Apex's shadow persisted, a late-night hack attempt on Resilience's site thwarted by Jamal's firewalls, leaving digital footprints tracing to overseas servers. "They're rattled," Clarissa noted in their war room huddle. "Takeout containers strewn like battle maps. Good, let them sweat." Lena's days blurred into a rhythm of advocacy. Dawn runs along the river for clarity, shifts at Silver Oak, now laced with purpose, slipping encouragement notes to colleagues, mentoring the new hire on boundary setting. Evenings bled into strategy, her apartment a hub of highlighters and half-eaten pizzas, the map evolving into a digital dashboard tracking Apex's tendrils. A breakthrough tip from the whistleblower. Encrypted files detailing echo protocols repeat offenders, flagged for escalated measures. Lena's name circled in red. "They adapt," the source warned. "But so can we go public with fragments," forced their hand. The plan coalesced. A timed leak to trusted reporters, synchronized with a Resilience presser. Lena scripted her opener. "Apex isn't a firm, it's a fear factory. But fear fades in the light of facts." As the leak dropped, headlines cascaded, shadow network exposed. Corporate silencers in the crosshairs, Apex's denials ringing hollow against the deluge of corroboration. Victor testified voluntarily to a oversight committee, his words a mea culpa amplified. "Blind spots in power blind us all." Lena opened mine. The tide turned palpably, petitions surged, allies mobilized. Lena's inbox a torrent of testimonies. Yet in quiet moments, tracing Sophie's bracelet on her wrist, she remembered the spark. A child's cry, a desperate dash, a defiance born of decency. Her voice, once a murmur in the margins, now thundered through corridors of change, inviting others to join the chorus. The personal vendetta of Harlan had dissolved into dust, but its ashes fertilized a field vast and verdant, where seeds of equity took root under Lena's watchful care. And as winter's chill nipped at the city's edges, promising trials ahead, Lena stood at her window, the skyline a canvas of possibility, whispering to the stars, "We're just getting started." The network's reach extended, tendrils of support snaking into neighboring states, virtual chapters sprouting in Detroit's auto plants, Seattle's tech trenches, each node a testament to diffusion over domination. Clarissa's suits multiplied, class actions stacking like dominoes poised to topple entrenched inequities. Jamal innovated relentlessly, his app evolving into a nationwide alert system, pings notifying users of local threats. Bias incident reported, share your story safely. Lena, at the Nexus, balanced the Blaze keynotes at labor conferences where her poise disarmed skeptics, one-on-one coaching for those teetering on speaking out. The quiet alchemy of listening as her greatest tool. Victor's evolution deepened. He mentored young execs on inclusive leadership, his foundation's grants seeding community kitchens modeled after Lena's vision spaces where food and futures were served in equal measure. Sophie's artwork adorned the walls of Lena's home, crayon rainbows, a daily talisman. Her occasional visits chaperoned playdates in parks, bridges mending what fury had frayed. "You're like a superhero without a cape," Sophie declared one afternoon, swinging on a tire swing as leaves swirled in eddies. Lena laughed, pushing gently. Nah, kiddo superheroes are the ones who believe in us first. Apex's counter-strikes grew frantic, bogus lawsuits alleging defamation, deepfakes circulating in fringe forums twisting her words into caricatures, but each assault backfired, galvanizing the network fundraisers, shattering records, celebrities lending star power to PSAs scripted by Lena herself. A pivotal win. City Council passed an ordinance mandating transparency in corporate consulting contracts, Apex's contracts scrutinized under new lights. As spring unfurled in tentative blooms, Lena reflected in her journal, pages filled with gratitude lists and goal grids. From shove to spotlight, not magic. Momentum. Keep moving. The chapter of Harlan's grudge closed with his sentencing, a suspended term cushioned by plea deals, but his testimony peeled back Apex's facade, depositions dripping with details of proactive posture protocols. Lena watched the hearing remotely, Jamal beside her, Clarissa narrating the legalese like a play-by-play. He singing, Clarissa crowed as the feed cut. Apex's board is scrambling resignations incoming. The ripple reached personal shores. Silver Oak's owners, pressured by public scrutiny, elevated Lena to shift lead, her input shaping training modules on crisis response and cultural sensitivity. Colleagues who'd once sidestepped now sought her counsel, the restaurant's vibe shifting from stratified to synergistic. Evenings found her at resilience gatherings, now overflowing into community halls, where stories evolved from soliloquies to symphonies, group chants of affirmations, collaborative murals depicting paths to power. One such night, under a canopy of projected stars, a newcomer, a warehouse worker from the industrial district, approached hesitantly. I saw your panel months back. Thought my story was too small. But now, Lena listened, her nod an invitation, and by session's end, his account of overtime manipulations joined the archive, another thread in the tapestry. Jamal's tech arm branched to a hackathon yielding an AI tool flagging biased language in HR docs, open-sourced for grassroots use. Victor, ever the evolving patron, hosted a summit at his lakeside retreat. Ethicists, activists, execs in dialogue circles, Lena moderating with the finesse of a conductor. Power unchecked corrodes, she posited, sparking debates that lingered into dawn. As summer's heat wave baked the pavements, Apex fractured publicly leaked memos branding it a liability vortex, clients fleeing like rats from a foundering ship. Federal probes launched, subpoenas flying, the network's architects scattering to consultancies abroad. Lena's role in the unraveling earned her a profile in a leading journal, the waitress who waited no more. Accolades piled, awards, invites, a book deal dangling, but she grounded it all in ground-level gains. Scholarships for service scholars, policy briefs co-authored with Clarissa, mentorship pods pairing veterans of the grind with aspiring advocates. Sophie's 7th birthday brought a full-circle moment. A garden party where Lena arrived not as guest but co-host, Victor's toast, acknowledging the woman who taught us family extends beyond blood. Sophie pressed a new drawing into her hands, a castle with drawbridges down, captioned Our Fortress of Friends. Lena pocketed it, heart full, as fireflies danced in the twilight. The ascent continued, each step a stanza in an ongoing epic, where the echo of one voice became a harmony of many, proving that from the ashes of assumption rises the unquenchable light of lived truth. And in the quiet core of it all, Lena remained the server at tables, in movements pouring out portions of possibility, one story at a time. With Harlan's confession echoing like a hollow victory in the sterile confines of the federal holding room, where the air hung heavy with the scent of stale coffee and fluorescent regret, Lena Thompson found herself at the precipice of a chasm far wider than the personal vendettas that had first scorched her path. The sun hung low over the city's industrial waterfront, casting elongated shadows across the rusted warehouses and container yards that fringed the river, a gritty tableau where commerce's underbelly met the relentless tide. It was here, in a nondescript community boathouse, repurposed as a neutral ground for their expanding circle, that Lena convened the next evolution of the Resilience Network, not as a casual huddle in a church basement, but as a strategic summit drawing threads from across the map. Maps, literal and figurative, sprawled across a scarred oak table, printed overlays of Apex Network's suspected hubs, from coastal data centers humming with algorithmic oversight to inland retreat centers hosting off-the-books seminars on proactive harmony. Jamal Washington, his sleeves rolled up to reveal tattoos inked during a rebellious college phase, tapped at a holographic projector he'd jury-rigged from salvaged parts, beams slicing the dim space to illuminate node after node, Stratton's faded logo linking to shell entities in tax havens, Harlan's contacts branching into lobbying arms that whispered in legislative ears. Apex isn't a monolith, he explained, his voice a measured cadence honed from late-night coding marathons. It's mycelium underground, interconnected, feeding on the decay of unchecked power. They don't just react, they predict, profile, preempt. Service logs from their dark web archives show patterns, flagging high-variance individuals, folks like you, Lena, who show sparks of advocacy early. Clarissa Reyes, her legal binder, a fortress of color-coded tabs, leaned forward, her reading glasses perched like a scholar's crown, and the laws their fertilizer. NDAs laced with perpetual silence clauses, arbitration clauses that bury claims in private star chambers. But we've got leverage now. Harlan's depot cracks the facade, and Victor's audit trails from Hale Industries point to Apex billing for reputational audits that read like hit lists. Victor Hale himself was absent, his role shifting to silent benefactor monthly wires to the network's coffers, introductions to sympathetic regulators, but his influence lingered in the room's periphery, a ghost of atonement funding the hunt. Lena traced a pin on the map, her finger lingering over a cluster in the Pacific Northwest, where Apex's rumored nerve center masqueraded as a wellness conglomerate peddling executive retreats. We can't just map it, we have to infiltrate, illuminate. Start with the fringes, those whistleblower fragments Elena promised. Elena, the mid-level operative who'd surfaced as their shadow ally, had gone dark after her last encrypted drop, a dossier of anonymized case studies. A logistics coordinator in Atlanta demoted via engineered performance metrics. A software engineer in Austin doxed through fabricated social trails, each tale a microcosm of Apex's macro machinery. Her final message, routed through a daisy chain of proxies, had been terse. Inner Circle's fracturing board infighting over exposure risks. Use this to wedge in. Safe house cords attached. Vancouver Edge, Old Mill District. The decision crystallized over shared platters of falafel and hummus from a nearby halal cart, the group's laughter punctuating the gravity, a brief ritual to remind them humanity thrived in the cracks of strategy. Lena volunteered for the Vancouver run, her passport stamped from a long-forgotten family trip north, but Jamal insisted on tandem. Tex my hammer, you swing it. Clarissa stayed stateside, rallying pro bono reinforcements, a cadre of paralegals and policy wonks drafting amicus briefs to tee up federal scrutiny. The flight north was a cocoon of preparation. Lena reviewing Elena's files on her tablet. Jamal syncing satellite imagery to a custom app that overlaid public records with Apex's leaked footprints. Vancouver greeted them with a drizzle that misted the evergreens lining the Fraser River, the city's blend of glass spires and heritage brick a soothing counterpoint to their mission's edge. The safe house proved a weathered boathouse on the water's fringe, its interior a warren of salvaged furniture and corkboards pinned with news clippings, global headlines on corporate overreach, from European data scandals to Asian labor suppressions. Elena awaited in the loft, a wiry woman in her 40s with cropped hair and eyes sharpened by years of compartmentalized doubt. Her laptop, a battered relic humming with off-grid power. "You made it," she said. No preamble, gesturing to a stack of thumb drives like contraband treasures. Apex's Harmony Codex is their operational Bible. Algorithms for sentiment scoring employee chatter, scripts for astroturfing online dissent, partnerships with psych firms for motivational recalibrations that border on coercion. As night deepened, the river lapping at pilings below, Elena unspooled the Codex's guts. Flowcharts, depicting tiered interventions, Tier 1. Subtle nudges like anonymous feedback loops. Tier 3, escalated measures involving third-party influencers seeding doubt. Lena's story slotted neatly into Tier 2, amplify internal conflicts to discredit. They profiled you pre-incident, Elena continued, projecting schematics onto a bedsheet screen. Service industry markers low visibility. High turnover made you ideal for testing narrative pivots. Harlan was your trial run. Success meant scaling to unions, co-ops. Jamal's fingers danced across his keyboard, mirroring data to secure clouds, his brow furrowed in the glow. This is gold timestamps tied to Harlan's moves, cross-referenced with Stratton's invoices. But the board? Names redacted, but patterns point to ex-agency heavies, venture vultures. Elena nodded, her expression a mosaic of relief and residue. They're global now, pilots in Berlin for gig economy clamps, Singapore for expat silencing. But cracks show a schism between old guard realists and new wave tech utopians pushing AI overreach. Leaks strategically target the utopians' vanity with ethics exposés. Dawn broke with a pact. Lena and Jamal smuggling the codex south, Elena vanishing into a network of safe passages funded by international watchdogs. Back in the city, the drop ignited a cascade. Clarissa filing under RICO analogs for enterprise corruption, the drives forked to investigative outlets hungry for the next Watergate of white-collar warfare. Lena's presser in a sunlit atrium, resilience banners framing her like a modern oracle, framed the reveal. Apex built walls around truth, but walls crumble under waves of witness. This codex isn't just files, it's freedom's blueprint, redrawn by those it sought to erase. Cameras flashed, questions volleyed on scalability, on safeguards, and Lena fielded them with the poise of a diplomat forged in diner booths, her answers laced with calls to action. Join the network. Your story's the solvent. The backlash brewed swift. Apex's PR machine spun counter-narratives in paywalled trades, fringe claims from disgruntled ex-employees, but the codex's veracity, vetted by fact-checkers in real time, shredded the spin. Victor's testimony before a joint congressional panel streamed to millions, lent gravitas. I profited from their shadows. Now I testify to their substance. Apex didn't just advise, they architected inequities. Lena watched from a green room, Jamal beside her cracking knuckles over code audits, as Victor detailed Hale's unwitting contracts, his voice cracking on Sophie's name, a human hook piercing the procedural veil. Momentum crested in waves. European regulators froze Apex. Linked assets. Asian labor coalitions launched parallel probes. A UN rapporteur citing the codex in a working paper on digital disenfranchisement. Domestically, resilience ballooned, regional chapters in Rust Belt towns hosting codex clinics, decoding Apex tactics for local unions. Coastal hubs partnering with tech ethicists to build open-source countermeasures, apps that anonymized whistleblower trails with blockchain veils. Lena jetted between nodes, her carbon footprint offset by network greening grants, each stop a masterclass in adaptation. In Detroit, co-facilitating with auto workers on supply chain surveillances. In Austin, brainstorming with coders on empathy engines to flag biased algorithms. One blistering July keynote at a national equity summit under a vast convention hall's chandeliers saw her unveil the Beacon Protocol Resilience's counter-framework, a living document crowdsourced from global inputs, protocols for preemptive allyship, toolkits for narrative reclamation, metrics for measuring equity's ripple. Apex sought harmony through hierarchy. She proclaimed to a hall electric with anticipation, but true accord arises from amplification, every voice a frequency in the frequency of fairness. Applause thundered, standing ovations rippling like aftershocks. But backstage, reality grounded her. A call from Elena, routed through cutouts, warning of Apex's endgame pivot, a desperate merger with a foreign conglomerate to offshore operations. They're cornered, lashing, Elena urged. Strike now, public shareholder pressure on their fronts. The network mobilized. Viral campaigns targeting Apex's public-facing shells, petitions amassing millions, divestment drives swaying institutional investors. Clarissa's masterstroke. A multi-district lawsuit bundling codex victims into a class juggernaut, discovery yielding troves of internal chats where execs bemoaned the Thompson vector as a contagion. Lena's deposition, delivered via secure video to a packed courtroom, wove her arc into the mosaic. They bet on my silence. I banked on solidarity. This isn't retribution, it's recalibration, ensuring no one's profiled into the shadows again. Verdicts cascaded, fines crippling Apex's liquidity, injunctions dismantling its core, board members scattering to consultancy exiles. The final nail, a landmark bill, the Thompson Transparency Act, mandating disclosure of suppression consultants, whistleblower shields etched into federal code, signed in a Rose Garden ceremony where Lena declined the podium but advised from the wings, her input shaping clauses on digital due process. Resilience rechristened Justice Beacon in a nod to light-piercing opacity morphed into a federation. Beacon hubs in every major metro, satellite outposts in rural co-ops, a global arm partnering with Amnesty chapters. Lena, eschewing a corner office for a rotating residency, mentored emerging stewards, young firebrands from community colleges, seasoned organizers from faded movements, her days a tapestry of travel and transmission, virtual firesides dissecting codex ethics, in-person immersions in beacon kitchens where meals fueled manifestos. Sophie's 8th birthday, a lakeside affair with kayaks and s'mores, marked a tender milestone. Victor grilling veggie skewers, Sophie gifting Lena a locket etched with Echo Maker, her laughter a balm against the boardroom battles. "You turned our storm into stars," Victor said quietly over dessert, his eyes reflecting genuine metamorphosis. Lena clasped his hand briefly. "Stars guide, but fleets navigate. We're the constellation now." As autumn gilded the leaves, Justice Beacon's inaugural global convening unfolded in a reclaimed warehouse by the river. Workshops on cross-border advocacy, art installations mapping suppressed migrations, keynote relays from Elena via hologram, and international kin. Lena closed the gala with a toast under strung lanterns. "Apex fell because we rose not in rage, but in resonance. From one shove in an ER to beacons worldwide, we've proven opacity yields to openness. Every time." Cheers swelled, arms linked in a helix of hope, the river outside mirroring the flow. In quieter interludes, Lena visited her mother's grave on the city's edge, wildflowers in hand, the stone warmed by late Sunday. "You taught me to serve with soul, Mama. Now I'm serving the soul of service." Wind whispered through oaks, carrying echoes of approval. Jamal, now Beacon's chief innovator, unveiled their crown jewel, the Echo Archive, a decentralized repository of reclaimed narratives, AI, curated but human-vetted, accessible via apps that translated testimonies into a dozen tongues. Clarissa helmed the legal vanguard, her firm a Beacon affiliate churning precedents like a mill of justice. Victor's foundation evolved into the Hail Harmony Fund, seeding Beacon scholarships for marginalized scholars in policy and tech. Sophie's drawings evolved too, comics of caped collectives toppling shadowy towers, mailed with notes. "Our team's unbeatable." Lena's personal ledger filled, a memoir in progress, ghost-written in stolen shifts, advisory roles at think tanks, her insights shaping curricula on resilient leadership, quiet dates with a fellow advocate met at a Beacon mixer, their conversations a gentle counterpoint to the grand gestures. Yet the work's horizon stretched eternal apexes, remnants regrouping in neophyte guises, new networks sprouting in their fertile void. Lena anticipated her journal a compass. "Victory's a verb, not a verboten. We vigilant, we vibrant." One crisp equinox eve, atop a Beacon rooftop garden where herbs scented the breeze and city lights twinkled like distant allies, Lena lit a lantern symbolic, solar-powered, releasing it skyward with Jamal, Clarissa, and a cadre of stewards. "To the unseen who sparked us," she murmured, the glow ascending like a vow. Below, the metropolis thrummed, trucks rumbling, voices vending dreams, a canvas ever revising. Justice Beacon wasn't an endpoint. It was an ethos. Lena, its steward eternal, her arc from alcove rescuer to alliance architect a testament. In the grand ledger of equity, every entry counts, and hers, bold and boundless, rewrote the balance. The network's tendrils now spanned hemispheres, Beacon outposts in Nairobi's markets, mentoring micro-entrepreneurs on fair trade firewalls, Tokyo's tech alleys hosting hackathons against algorithmic apartheid, Sao Paulo's favelas fusing street art with surveillance audits. Lena's travels blurred into a montage, coaching a cohort in Cape Town on codex countermeasures, her Zulu phrases halting but heartfelt, brainstorming with Berlin baristas on union apps that gamified grievance tracking, sharing stages in Sydney with indigenous elders, their dreamtime wisdom weaving with her urban grit into hybrid harmonies. Each locale layered her lens. The Global South's communal resilience inspiring Beacon circle economies, where resources looped locally to evade corporate capture, Asia's precision ethic sharpening their data defenses, firewalls forged in code that mimicked bamboo's bend but not break. Back home, the Act's implementation birthed innovations, federal dashboards, tracking suppression filings, incentives for firms adopting Beacon-vetted ethics audits. Clarissa's caseload ballooned, but so did Victory's. Settlements funding, community trusts, precedents piercing sovereign immunities for multinational meddlers. Jamal's Echo archive hit critical mass. Its neural net trained on anonymized testimonies generating predictive alerts. Rising risk in your sector, connect with local stewards. Lena curated its ethos, ensuring algorithms amplified without appropriating. Her veto on overreach a sacred check. Victor's arc deepened into mentorship. Quarterly retreats where execs role-played Lena scenarios, emerging with humility homework, volunteering at beacon hubs, auditing their own blind spots. Sophie's orbit grew too. School projects on everyday changemakers. Her class visiting a beacon kitchen to plant herbs and harvest histories. Victor beaming as she presented a diorama of the great unshove. Personal tides ebbed gently, Lena's romance blossoming into shared safaris, weekends unplugging in cabin retreats where debates dissolved into stargazing symphonies. Yet vigilance veiled joy, a tip on Apex 2, rebranded as Equilibria Partners, probing beacon's edges with honeyed overtures. Lena convened a war council in a sun-dappled park, picnic blankets masking the maps. They evolve. We eclipse. Seed counter. Narratives in their boardrooms, insider grants for ethical exits. The ploy landed. A cascade of defections, Equilibria imploding under self-inflicted scrutiny. Beacon's cultural cachet surged, docuseries premiering at festivals. Lena's narration, a velvet voiceover threading testimonies. Merchandise lines funding scholarships. Teas emblazoned with Echo, don't mute. Awards accrued, a MacArthur nod for creative catalysis. Her acceptance, a masterclass. Genius resides in the collective, not the crowned. As winter's solstice approached, Beacon's Solstice Gala lit the waterfront pavilion, lanterns afloat on the river, performers blending hip-hop with haiku on harmony. Lena, in a gown woven from recycled silks, danced with stewards from Seoul to Seattle, her toast a beacon. We've bridged chasms, but the horizon calls sustainable, scalable, soulful. Fireworks bloomed overhead, mirroring inner illuminations. In the hush after, atop the pavilion's cupola with Jamal and Clarissa, Lena surveyed the sprawl, the river's flow, the skyline's spires, lives laced anew. From one cry in a corner to choruses worldwide, she reflected, breath fogging the chill air. Jamal clinked his flask, and the melodies just tuning up. Clarissa grinned, to the next verse. The stars wheeled above, indifferent witnesses, as below. Justice Beacon pulsed, eternal engine of equity. Lena, its undimmed dynamo, proving that from shadowed shoves spring symphonies unending.